So excited. Podcast Movement University, or Podcasting University, from Podcast Movement. We're excited to get started today. My name is Randy Wilburn. I am the host of several podcasts, and I run a number of podcasts. And I also own a company called Encourage, Build, Grow, where we do podcast strategy consulting. So I'm excited to be here in Jared's steed today. And so we have a great guest for you for today's episode, and that is Juliana Mayer, and she's with Superpass. And Juliana, how are you doing today?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Very happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to get started because I know Juliana has a lot of great information to share with our audience today. I'm actually excited to do this. So I've got my notes out. So if you need a quick second to grab a pen and a notepad, go ahead and do that. I know Juliana's going to drop some nuggets today. So I really want to encourage you to take advantage of this information that she's going to share. Because as I've always said, it's one thing to put a podcast together. It's a whole nother thing to try to take your podcast and make it a business. And you can't do that without setting up a really good website and putting some of the other pieces together that go along with that amazing audio that you're creating on a regular basis. So without further ado, Juliana Mayer, why don't you go ahead and get started? We're excited. Want to let everybody know that we will take questions throughout. If you have a question, please pop it into the chat. We will be monitoring that, and there will be time for Q&A at the end, but we're going to let Juliana go ahead and take the time to tell us all about Superpass so we can really learn about how this program could actually revolutionize the way that we do podcasting and the way that we present our image to the world. Juliana, it's all yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Randy. Well, welcome, everyone. I hope that you're all having a good day. And have we got a screen share? Perfect. Awesome. Okay, wonderful. So hi, I'm Juliana Mayer, and I'm founder and CEO of Superpass. So a little bit about my background. I've been a content creator for 24 years. I launched my first website in the 90s and was one of the first people on Facebook, have leveraged social media and the internet to build a few businesses from nothing, and have successfully turned my side hustle into my main hustle a few times. And that's something I really love to help entrepreneurs and content creators to do. So 10 years ago, I founded Superpass, which is the all-in-one website and app maker for your content, community, and paywall. And in 2020, we helped creators and entrepreneurs increase their revenue 1,200% during the pandemic. And for the last 10 years, I worked closely with content makers, helping them to build their own subscription businesses and to nurture an audience of superfan customers. I've learned so much from those experiences, and I'm excited to share those insights with you here today. So building a business around your podcast is all about connection. It's about connecting with the right people in the right way, sharing something meaningful, and then deepening that relationship by creating super listeners and ultimately super customers. So how do you do that? How do you create those connections? How do you find those people? And what do you do when you have, so that you can create the business you've always wanted and turn your side hustle into your main hustle? Those are the questions I'd like to dive into today. Whether you're just starting out or you're a veteran podcaster who's been in this a long time, there's two really important questions to ask yourself. The first one is, who is this for? And the second one is, what's the ultimate action that I want my listeners to take when they're really engaged? And if you don't yet know the answer to both these things, it's a really good place to start. Here are some of the reasons why we start podcasts. You want to connect with people and make a difference in their lives. You're each an expert in your niche or niche, and maybe you want to become the leading authority in your space. Most of all, we all want to inspire and to be inspired. So how do you know who's listening to your podcast? How do you know what they connected to, what you said in the episode, and what they want to hear more of? Getting this feedback is so important. You want to turn it from a one-way conversation into a two-way conversation, so you know what's working and what listeners want you to do more of. There are lots of ways to get feedback from listeners, but the best place you should be doing this is on your own website. I'll talk later about the many advantages of doing this on your own website. Knowing who your audience is a multi-step process. First, it's who you think your audience is, who you have in mind when you set out to create the episodes. Then it's who actually listens to it. And then of those listeners, which connect most deeply and really resonate with it. Understanding who this is so important. Without that, it's very hard to build your business. You also want to own the connection to those listeners. Just knowing how many downloads an episode has doesn't tell you much about who your audience is. So if your call to action on your podcast is write me a comment, tell me, what did you like about today's episode? What else would you like me to make an episode on? You're inviting anyone that's really enjoyed it to come talk to you. Only some will do it, maybe only 1 to 10%, but those are your super listeners and you want to find them. You want to know who they are. You want them to stand out above your other listeners, and then you want to double down and do more for them, because that's who's going to help you turn your side hustle into your main hustle. If they can comment on your own website, you can instantly get their email address as part of them creating that comment. This is the best way to start that deeper relationship. You're not asking them to give up their email address in return for maybe a free ebook. And I really don't like that idea that they feel they're giving up something to you in one of those lead magnets. It's too often feels like a sales pitch and puts a lot of people off. You want to build the relationship in a natural way that feels organic and feels like you're giving more to them rather than asking for money or an email address too early in that relationship. A comment on your website feels like a natural next step. So now you know who your super listeners are and what is resonating with them. That's the most important step in creating products that they'll love and will ultimately build your business. The second question I put at the start is, what's the ultimate action I want my listeners to take when they're really engaged? Do you want them to buy your video course, audiobook, or other digital content, become a monthly paid member, buy a consultancy or other services, buy tickets to your events, buy physical products, or perhaps something else? Or maybe it's more than one of those. I'd love to hear what you're doing. So please share in the chat or the comments, what's the ultimate action that you want them to take once they're really engaged? And then we can have a chat about that in the Q&A at the end. All the other things in between are part of the funnel you create to get them there. The things in between that are not the final destination may be subscribe to your podcast, follow you on social media, join your social media group, join your email list, get your free lead magnet, watch your YouTube or Instagram, or read your blog. But these are all stepping stones to get them to eventually take that ultimate action. So what is that action? If you don't yet know, it's a great question to ask yourself as a next step. If you already know the answer, the next question is, how are you currently sending people there? This is where we think the market's a bit broken. For most, this experience is complicated for both listeners and creators. Everything's fragmented and spread out in so many different places. Go here for my courses, over there for my YouTube, over here for my blog, over there for my Facebook group, over here to donate as a patron, over there to contact me. It's exhausting. So what if there was a way that you could have all of this together in one place? And what if there was a way that this place could be your own website, where you own the relationship with your audience directly, including their email address, where you keep 100% of any money you earn without losing some as revenue share to other platforms, where it's your brand and your brand alone, so you don't have to keep cutting through the noise and competing for attention. That's exactly why I wanted to make Superpass for content creators. For a long time, I thought that this experience is broken online. I wanted to create software that can allow any content creator to have an awesome website and mobile app that looks like Netflix or Spotify, so their audience can have the awesome, amazing experiences that consumers expect from the big social media or streaming platforms, but where it's all on your own website, so you can truly build relationships with your audience in a place that's 100% yours. Your brand, your content, your money, your relationship. As I said earlier, I will come back to why your own website is the best place to get a super listener to comment on your show. And the things that we've been talking about are many of the reasons. You want to know who your audience is, but importantly, you also want their email address so you can own the relationship directly and not be dependent on a third-party platform. I've heard so many examples where creators' pages have been removed from social media platforms in an instant, losing hundreds of thousands of followers and over 5 years of work with no way to get it back. It's absolutely devastating. So leverage social media, but don't be entirely dependent on it. For those that remember MySpace, shows how old I am, years of work was lost when that went out of vogue. And the same is happening now with Facebook now, as many are flocking to TikTok, Clubhouse, and the next big thing. It's exhausting putting in all that work, but never owning the relationship directly. Definitely use those platforms to grow your reach, but they shouldn't be the final destination. You want to own the final destination, and that should be your own website and app. There are lots of powerful and wonderful ways to create your own website. It's never been easier. So what tools should you use? Well, that depends what you're making. It depends on the answer to my second question. What's the ultimate action I want my listeners to take when they're really engaged? If you have lots of different content, podcasts, videos, video courses, blog, you want to create a powerful website that can easily host all of those things together in one place. And that's the problem we're solving with Superpass, the Superpass website and app maker. So instead of using an e-learning platform for your video courses, separate from your blog, separate from your podcast website, we make it really easy to finally have all those together in one place on your own website URL directly. It automatically pulls in your podcast and blog via RSS within seconds. The powerful page builder enables you to have a gorgeous landing page. The members login helps you to grow your own community and collect email addresses with comments. And the paywall enables you to create video courses, membership subscriptions, and any other ways you want to monetize your content. You don't need any other website tools. You can have your own Netflix or Spotify style website and app pre-built out the box. A lot of people come to me and tell me how hard they find WordPress, how complicated it is with plugins, and how often they need to even hire someone else to build and design and manage it for them. I love making it super simple for creators to instantly have a gorgeous looking website, which is why at Superpass, we aim to make it as easy to create as a Facebook group with no code or plugins needed. Just upload your content and boom, it's made. I love that the creators we work with have told us it's been a game changer for them. So I want to come back to talking more about websites in general. Your website should be the focal point of your business. But astonishingly, over 90% of content creators send people away from their website. I like to say it often feels like a train station. You arrive there only to instantly be sent away to another platform. Go to my social media or listen to these podcasts on these podcast players. But those are busy platforms where you'll have to fight to regain their attention all over again. This feels crazy. Once they've finally come to your website, it's the holy grail of nurturing those super listeners. You want to keep them there. You want to hold their attention. You want to give them an awesome experience. So not only do they stay, but they keep coming back again and again. Traditional websites just aren't set up for this. We're changing that. We think your website should be the ultimate destination for everything you're doing, to finally have all your content, community, and digital shop all together in one place. There's one more thing that's incredibly powerful for all the things that we talked about today, and that's having your own mobile app. Why would you want your own app? Well, for all the reasons we've talked about and more. Ultimately, why are you growing a business? To build a deep connection with people that matter to you and to make money. And an app can really help you achieve both of these in an accelerated way, more directly than any other option. Let's revisit the sales funnel. Think back to that call to action on your podcast. Instead of saying, go here for the show notes, go over there for the sponsor, go over there to comment, go to another place for my course, go here for my 5-day ebook lead magnet. Imagine instead of saying all those things, you can instead just say one thing. Download my app. If you like what you've heard today, download my app. Tell me what you think. Download my app. See what other content I'm making. Download my app. Find out more about this amazing sponsor. Download my app. Join my community. Download my app. Be first to hear about new stuff. Download my app. You get the picture. So literally anything you're doing, it can all be in the app, and they can simply just go to the App Store, type in your brand name, and there they've got it. And then it's on your phone, their phone. Every time they go into their phone, they're going to keep seeing your brand, remembering you, and you're going to be the forefront of their mind a lot more than if it's just a website or in really noisy third-party platforms. And then once they have your app, you can use push notifications to keep their attention and cut through the noise more than you can in a busy inbox or on social media. Having an app also raises your brand profile, helping you get more lucrative sponsorship deals and standing out above your competition as the leading expert in your niche. I want to show you an example. So here's Brody. He's a podcaster and physio in Australia. His business is called Run Smarter, and he's an expert in recovering from running injuries. He had a podcast, video courses, Patreon donations, free 5-day email lead magnet, and a blog. And when we met him, he was frustrated that his audience experience was so fragmented. So now he has everything together on his own website and app, with everything finally together in one place. Plus, he now keeps 100% of his Patreon donations, moving all his patrons over to his own website from Patreon. His audience have one login for everything. They can engage in all the things he does and create community in one place, in the same place as the podcast, video courses, and other content. He only needs to upload content once to one dashboard, which goes both to his website and app. And it's the same paywall login and access for his audience on both his website and app. Also, the comments are also linked and show in both places. He has complete control of his entire content business in one place. And instead of wasting time on building websites, he can focus on making the next content and growing his audience and revenue. Here's another example. So we made the Podfest app for all the Watch Again recordings from the Podfest conferences. It's like their own mini Netflix with over 1,000 recordings from 5 Podfest conferences and a central hub for their content and community. So when you're making content, ask yourself, who is this for? And what is the ultimate action I want my listeners to take when they're really engaged? When you know the answer to both of these, you can focus on building an engaged audience of super listeners and create a natural, easy way to turn them into super customers. Well, thanks so much for listening. I'm so passionate about helping entrepreneurs and creators to take their audience to the next level. And at Superpass, we've helped loads of creators during the pandemic increase their revenue up to 1,200%. So I hope today has given you some ideas on how you can do that for yourself as well. Before I finish today, I just want to show you how easy we make it at Superpass to design your podcast app in under 60 seconds. So I'm just going to go to this next slide. Just need to move this to the side. So here we are. So when you first buy your Superpass app, you literally come in, say, yes, I'm a podcaster, type in your podcast. It'll find it instantly. And then you literally press import and it will start importing your podcast. And so there's about 1,000 episodes, I think, on this podcast, and it only takes 14 seconds to literally get the entire podcast into your website and app. So there we go. Got to wait another very long 3 more seconds. And there we have it. So you've got the whole thing in there. And then we're just going to customize your branding. So it's automatically pulled that logo, but we're just going to replace it with one at the right size. We're also going to bring your app to life with a nice cover photo. We're going to give your brand color and choose light or dark theme. And that's literally it. So it's about 60 seconds, I think, that whole process. And before I show you the app, I'm just going to show you the dashboard. So you can see there's tons of different features that you'll have access to. But if we go into the audio, you can see there's your podcast already pulled in. And you've got all the episodes there that you can then go and curate into various collections and stuff. So here, this is the app that you've literally made in 60 seconds. It's all already designed. As you can see, it looks beautiful. It's got a stunning player that's very much like any of your other podcast players. It's all in your own app. And you've got all of your episodes there. And you haven't had to do any work, any design, anything at all. And then if we go into an episode, you can see all the show notes are pulled in as well from the RSS feed. You can add comments. You can favorite tracks. So lots of different features there. And now I'm just going to show you it in light mode. So you can see how with just a click of a button, you can completely change the branding of it. So here we have light mode. It's a completely different vibe, but it's exactly the same layout that you've just seen. So that's literally it in 60 seconds, how you can create your podcast app in literally 60 seconds there. So that's pretty much it from me today. Thank you so much for listening. And I'd love to hear any questions that you have and hear about your goals and challenges and how we potentially could help you. And just before I finish, if you'd like to have your own Superpass website and app, we've basically got 14-day free trial, so you can go and give it a go and experience that flow I've just shown you. But we also have a completely free tier. If you just want to have a podcast website, you can literally have that build and host your podcast website for free. So that's it from me. And we've got a nice discount as well for you. So if you listen to the end, we'll be sharing that with you too.
Okay, that was awesome. You talk about straight and to the point, Juliana. You knocked it out of the park. Thank you so much. I was up here taking furious notes. I don't know about anybody else, but it's exciting. I'd heard of you guys, but I wasn't too familiar. But you certainly demystified the whole process by sharing your thoughts today and just giving us some feedback in terms of what SuperPass can do. I actually had a couple of questions while we wait to see if any
Awesome.
other
Yeah, let's.
questions pop up. Are you finding any larger podcasts that are finding success and are using your platform?
Yeah, so we work with a really wide range of podcasters, from podcasters just starting out to ones that have literally been making, have thousands of episodes. And I think where we really help people is where they're not just making a podcast, they're also making other content. So whether that's video courses or a blog or audiobooks or even just upselling their consultancy, where we really come into its own is where just having a podcast website over there is really fragmented from the rest of the experience. And what we can really do that's so different to the other platforms is we can bring all of that together so that you can literally have it in one place. And I think that's really where we've added a lot of value for people.
Yeah, no, and that totally makes sense. And I'll hold my other question for later. Michael
Oh, I'm so
Fortune
curious. I want to know what it is.
no, it's all good. Michael Fortune from our YouTube audience asked, how does this compare? And you kind of answered it in the last question, but how does this compare to sites like GoDaddy or Wix?
Okay, it's a brilliant question. So sites like that, they're great website builders, and you can pretty much build any kind of website you want with those. But what they don't specialize in is content, and not just content, but content streaming. So we've built our website and apps to look and feel like Netflix or Spotify. So we have something called the Smart Builder, where you upload your videos and automatically it will curate it into content and collections and topics, which is very much like your layout on Netflix or Amazon Prime or any of those other platforms. So you're not having to if you build a website on Wix, you've got to literally think of it from the ground up. You've got to know about design. You've got to understand about the plugins. And whereas with this, the same ways, if you start a YouTube channel, you don't really have to think about any of that stuff. You literally upload your content, decide what it's called, brand it with your images and stuff. That's how simple we've made it. But it's all your own branding. It's your own website URL. So it's kind of the best bits about how easy social media is, but with your own branding on your own URL, without the kind of complexities that you get with Wix and WordPress that are really powerful, but aren't specialized for content, paywall, and community.
Yeah, no, I like that. I hope that answers Michael's question.
Thanks, Michael.
Got a question from Podcast Audio Lab. How much content do you need to have in the SuperPass site before Apple will approve the app to show up in the store?
Okay, so that's a really good question. It kind of varies. So I know that's not the most helpful answer, but Apple's App Store approval process does tend to, they're not that consistent. But what we typically find is that as long as you've got a few episodes in there and a few different bits of content, generally that's fine. If you've just got so it really does vary, but typically if you're going to have someone downloading the app, obviously it's not just about the Apple approval process, it's also about if people download the app, are they going to find value there? So you don't really want to do it when you just have one episode. Probably just a website at that point is good enough. But once you've got a few dozen episodes or a video course and a podcast series or whatever it is where they're going to have a real reason to download the app and come there, then that's a really good time to add the app. And the nice thing with the way SuperPass works is you can start with the website and then add the app later. And it's literally just it's a very simple process to turn the app on. You're not having to do anything with uploading new content, getting users to register in a new place. Literally all those registrations and comments and content is already on your app as soon as you turn it on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. That makes perfect sense. So I did have a question. I'll ask Michael's question first because it is a legit follow-up. Is the app iOS and Android, or is it a web-based app?
It's all native. So we basically have 3 different products. So the website is all native. It's all responsive design as well. So it'll automatically redesign itself for mobile mobile devices, tablets, and desktop. And then in addition, you've got the iOS native app that's all built native, and then the Android app, which is all built native as well. So we're really using the strengths of those 3 individual platforms to, like, all the design and the features are are making the most of those, rather than, for those that don't know, sometimes when you buy mobile apps from companies, they're actually just using like a cross-platform builder that actually is really just a website, and it's not a good experience. It's not very slick. Whereas us, everything's native. With the iOS app, we pride ourselves on making an app that we feel is something that even Apple potentially could have made themselves. So all the design that we follow and stuff is always with that highest bar in mind.
Okay. Well, good questions. Good questions, Michael Fortune. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Okay. So I have some more questions because I was just told by Shannon that was the last question from social. So if anybody is still hemming and hawing and thinking about asking a question, feel free to do that while I continue to ping Juliana with a couple of other questions that I have, just so that we're clear. This does not replace your hosting provider for your podcast.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So this works in tangent with whatever podcast host you have. So you still need your podcast host to distribute your podcast to all the other podcast players, whether that's, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever that is. So you definitely still want that service. But then what this does is it automatically pulls it in from that too. So you're not having to upload your podcast into there and to your website. We automatically pull it in the same way as the podcast players will have your podcast. This will also have your podcast, and it will just be like another player. So effectively, you've got like a state-of-the-art podcast player on your own website and in your own mobile app, but you're not having to do any more work than distributing it to everywhere else. And the other thing that I'll also mention about the website is there's a lot of different ways that you can create, add your podcast to your website. But most of the things that we see, you often are adding like an embed of your podcast, which means that when a listener then comes to your website to press play on the podcast, as soon as they then browse around to see something else on your website, the episode stops playing. Whereas with this, because it's built as a streaming site, that podcast episode will continue to play wherever they navigate around the site. And if they write comments, and if they go read something else or go look at your blog, that episode will keep playing. So it's really about a premium streaming experience, which actually is very unusual on the market.
Okay. Well, we did have, sure enough, we had somebody else pop in and ask a question. Thanks to Michael. His question is simply, what kind of cost difference or savings, I'd imagine, can one expect by using SuperPass versus hiring an app builder / website developer here in the US or overseas through like Fiverr or whatever to build the same?
Okay, so you may not believe me on this, but your savings will be more than 100 times, possibly even 1,000 times savings for the mobile apps. Because literally with this, you can have the mobile apps for less than you'd pay a developer for 1 day of developer time a month. You're getting the full suite, and you're not just getting the suite built, you're getting it constantly updated. So, every time that there's a new iOS operating system released or new browser updates or anything like that, you have to keep updating your tech, but we do that for you. So you don't have to worry about anything. It's just that one fixed cost every month, and it's literally less than probably most of the things you're spending money on. It's less than one developer or designer day a month. And also, I think I did mention this already. If you just have a podcast and just want the website, we literally have a free tier. So that's going to be cheaper than any of the other website builders out there, because you can have that for free hosting your own podcast website. And then it's only once you start to add other content that then you need to use one of our paid tiers.
Okay, that's great. Well, Michael, I hope that was helpful for you. I'm going to ping in with another question. How about some people on their websites use players. So like Fusebox is one that comes to mind. Captivate has a player. I think Libsyn also has a player that you can embed in your post. So like when I personally, my hosting provider is Captivate.fm, and they have a player. So that player I embed as a custom HTML code into my WordPress site for each episode. Is that rendered kind of obsolete with SuperPass? Is that
exactly?
Or can you still install custom HTML?
So you literally just won't need it, because if, let's say, you're hosting it on Libsyn or Buzzsprout or Captivate or any of those, the podcast will already be pulled into the website through the RSS feed, and then we'll display all the episodes with the show notes and the native inbuilt player, which you just won't need the embed. And as I mentioned before, if you embed the player, as soon as they navigate away from that page, the episode will stop playing. So this is far better than that, because you can have all the episodes there and it's in a player that persists across the entire site. So yeah, and you just don't have to worry about plugins or embeds or HTML code or anything like that. It all just works.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And I guess the whole idea here is that you're trying to get people to not jump around from like Stitcher to iHeartRadio and all these other places to pull and listen to your podcast. So you're trying to get them to come to one place where it's all aggregated and everybody can kind of stay in that area.
Yeah, exactly. So if they really love what you're doing and they, want to write a comment on your episode or read the show notes or, engage with other like-minded people that also love listening to, quite often, topic-based podcast, you want to talk to other listeners. So, you can really easily organically create that community. And I think being on the, that wider distribution on the other podcast players is still really, really important. And some people will want to listen to it on their native player. So this is really for when you want them to take some action directly with you. So whether that is bringing you into the ecosystem where you can, maybe there's some special offer that you've mentioned on the podcast that they can access some other kind of cool content or watch the video of the episode or some other reason why they might want to not just do it in their normal podcast listening player, but actually come there to engage with you. This is a great way for listeners to do that.
Cool. So, and then Michael also chimed in. He said, could you speak about what kind of effects the all-in-one website has on SEO and indexing of our content?
Yeah, so I mean, it all helps, that kind of stuff. So, we're SEO, well, I was going to say SEO optimized, obviously. We're optimized for search engines. And also the tech that we use is super, super fast. So, these days SEO actually puts quite a lot of weight on page speed and stuff like that. And you'll notice when you go to any of the sites, there can be a page with literally 1,000 pieces of content and it loads like that. So, there's a lot of things that we do to really help your SEO.
Okay. And I'm assuming the redundancy or backup of your servers, you've got, that's never an issue in terms of downtime or anything like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So for those that are interested, AWS is basically where our servers are. So that's Amazon Web Services. It's the world's leading provider. And yeah, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay, I love that. I did have so two things I noticed. One thing that I think would be beneficial, especially for anybody listening to this, is that what if you are running or want to run a podcast network, this actually might be a really good program to utilize when you're spinning up new shows to just incorporate them into an all-in-one model like SuperPass. Correct me if I'm wrong, but do you have any current podcast networks that use your service?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So it's really easy to have, even if you had 100 different podcast series, you can literally pull them all into the same app. You can then curate them into different topics. It makes it a really, really nice way. So, because I think with a lot of podcast networks, you go to their website where it's a bit overwhelming. You just have like one endless page of all the different series and stuff. Whereas with this, because it's designed for thousands of pieces of content, you really curate each of the different types of podcast series into different topics. And another cool thing to deviate a little bit from the podcast network, but another cool thing you can do with your actual podcast app series is you can also curate episodes into different topics. So, for example, I gave the example of Brody from Run Smarter earlier. If he wants to, so he has his main series that's, podcast series is all chronologically arranged. So let's say he's got episodes about ankle injuries, then maybe they're all in the topic about that. And then he's got another one of like, how many rests should you have, so whatever. Those are terrible examples, but so you can actually really make it a beautiful content discovery experience for your listeners that isn't just one massive long chronological list. But similar with your podcast network, you can do the same. So you can have all of, each podcast series can be in there, but then you can also create collections. So maybe you've got some themes across different series within your episode, and you're actually across your different series within your network, and you want to actually curate that for your listeners to have a curated experience to enhance their discovery and discover other episodes in your network, other series in your network. So yeah, we have a few examples of that, and I think we're just beginning to, it's like the tip of the iceberg. I think there's a lot more the podcast networks could really do with it.
Yeah. And I'm curious now that I'm listening to you talk and I'm kind of processing this. How often are you updating? How many iterations of SuperPass have you been, working on, and how frequently, if we join SuperPass, can we expect that there will be updates to the service?
I love that question because the answer is we are literally updating all the time. So as I mentioned at the start of the talk, we've been going for 10 years. I think in terms of the entire platform, this is the third version of SuperPass, but we literally are constantly updating the technology. We're constantly adding new features. Podcasters that joined in March have sent us so much feedback in the last couple of months saying, wow, we can't believe how many new features there have been since we signed up in March. So yeah, we're constantly adding new features. We have a very close relationship with the content creators that we work with to constantly find out what else do you want, what's going to be most meaningful for you. Do you have any feedback on how we can make things more intuitive? And that's really how we've developed the product. And I think that's also kind of why we've got something that is a bit different in the market and is a little bit ahead of the curve, because we are constantly really listening to what pain points people have and then building tech that's going to address those. And we've got a really exciting roadmap for the next 6 months. And as I say, we just keep adding stuff to it.
Well, we just got another comment from Podcast Audio Lab. He said, he or she said, I'm building a new training platform using SuperPass that will have 4 pricing tiers, including free, as well as different tracks, like what you just talked about, and from the same overall collection of training videos. It's awesome.
Thank you.
So,
hey, Marcus, thank you so much.
So that's cool. Yeah. No, I love that. It's nice to get some online testimonials about the service and that it really works. Now I'm really excited. Maybe I think I need to try this. If I want to write just a simple blog post, is that possible as well, or is it all just media version?
Yeah. So the 3 content types is videos, audio, and articles. So with articles, it can either be more like news articles, or it can be blog posts. It can be any of those really. You can also pull in through the RSS from an existing blog, but actually a lot of our clients really use it as really a place to kind of create premium articles and news content as well, which just works really nice, particularly if you're making courses or other kind of educational content. It's just such a nice way to have those extra resources all in one place with your videos and your audio streaming. And of course, with the audio streaming, it's not just about podcasts. It might also be audiobooks. It might be music albums. It's really any kind of video or audio content can all live together. Okay, cool. And the other question that I did have, so you answered my podcast network question, but SMS, is SMS part of this at all? So texting? So we don't use SMS because basically with the power of push notifications, you kind of don't need that. With SMS, it's complicated. You've got to collect people's phone numbers. It's personal data you have to look after. You've got to integrate in all sorts of ways. It's expensive. There's a lot of reasons why SMS is clunky, whereas a push notification, it's so simple. It will go to whatever device they have. You have a lot of granular control over who it goes to, so you can control so you'll have different kind of access and products within your app, depending, each content is kind of curated into different areas. And then you can send a push notification just to those users for a specific thing. You can send automatic notifications every time you have new content, or you could send custom ones based on, if you've got some big announcement or just want everyone to pile in the app and tell you what they think of something. So yeah, with push notifications, we just don't think SMS is really needed. But if somebody really did want to use it, there's probably a way to hook up with Zapier. We use Zapier to hook into any kind of CRM you're using. You can push stuff to social media. There's loads of different integrations that we do, working with a lot of the ecosystem you're probably already using.
Okay, good. So you're not, you even though you are an island, you don't sit off by yourself. You do.
Oh no, we definitely want to be
bridges that allow you to do that.
Sorry, I talked over you. No. So what was the last bit that you said?
No, I said, I know a lot of people like those bridges that allow different aspects of their business to connect with each other. And I'm thinking of a million that I use, but I'm glad you mentioned Zapier.
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely want to be part of the wider ecosystem. We believe that this is a really powerful tool set missing and is a really fragmented journey for both, listeners and content creators. But it would be crazy to have it as an island or a walled garden, because then we're just as bad as the kind of the parts of the ecosystem that we think is broken. We think that you should be able to integrate into everything else that you are using, although a lot of those things you won't need anymore. But, we do think you should use social media to increase your reach, and we create an easy way for you to constantly update your followers to know all about all this cool stuff to drive people to your central final destination. We also integrate with your CRM and anything else that you want to hook up with to, if you've got some other special things that you want to give people that pay a subscription to you access to, you can actually use those integrations to do that. So yeah, just absolutely want to make it as easy as possible for you to do all the things you want to do without being stuck anywhere or dependent on any one thing, but also making everything as simple as possible for you.
Great. So, and I heard what you said about CRM. So if I'm capturing an email address through your app, it can go over to like MailChimp or MailerLite or Aweber or whatever. So, okay. All right. Perfect. Michael asked about any coupon codes. I think, is this a coupon code that you have, Podcast Movement 21?
We do. Yeah, exactly. So 10% off for anybody listening to this episode. So yeah, it's basically Podcast Movement 21. It'll give you 10% off any of our plans. So yeah, and there's also a 14-day free trial. So you'll get that too. And then as I say, if you just want to have a podcast website, we're literally just launching a free tier for that. So you can have your own podcast website for free. So yeah, head on over to the website, cool. Michael. If you've got any questions, then there's a contact us there too. Would love to hear your questions too. But yeah, anyone that wants a discount, special Podcast Movement 21 for you.
I suspect that Michael is on his browser right now, popping in superpass.com to check it out. So I'm sorry, I do have another question, and this might be something that other people are thinking about. What about like taxonomy and structure of, so like typically one of my podcasts, I have a structure where it's the domain .com / and then the number of the episode. Will I lose that when I come over to SuperPass, or is there a way to reset up that structure?
Yeah, so we can look at that with you, where you can have redirects so that you're not losing that historical SEO. But yeah, that's something that we can look at with you.
Okay, perfect. That's what I thought. Cool. All right, folks. There is a lot of great information. Juliana shared so many nuggets, so many great ideas about setting up your presence on the web in a way that really incorporates the hard work that you put into putting a podcast together, to getting it out there to the world, to the widest audience possible. I mean, I think that's always our goal as creators, whether we're doing it on the video side or on the audio side, but especially for my audio files out there, for the folks that are creating for listening pleasure. I really want to encourage you to take a closer look at SuperPass. It is certainly something that you may want to add to the arsenal of other things that you're using within your business to get your message out there. You have an important message. Everybody needs to hear it. And Juliana Mayer and her team have made a great effort and spent a decade putting SuperPass together. So we really appreciate you coming on today, Juliana, to share your expertise and to share a little bit about your baby. This is your baby that you created and that you continue to develop. So thank you so much for coming on Podcast University with Podcast Movement and sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Randy. And I loved your questions. Thank you, Michael, for your questions. Thank you, Marcus, for your input and endorsement of what we're doing. I'm really glad that you love using the platform, and everyone else who's been watching. And if anyone's got any questions, please come over to superpass.com and we'd love to have a chat with you. And yeah, thanks so much. And, I hope that no matter what kind of platform you use, that real value of having everything in one place on something that you own, I think that is really where everything's kind of moving in the industry now. I think people are really understanding why you can't just be 100% dependent on social media platforms and third-party platforms for all of that. So I think it's a really interesting time for content creators, where we are all starting to look at what else can we be doing to really grow our business to the next level. So I hope that it's given you food for thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again. I want to give a quick shout out to Shannon Poe for keeping things together on the back end, and also to our indomitable leaders, Dan Franks and Jared Easley from Podcast Movement and the rest of the Podcast Movement team for putting this program and platform together, because without these guys, we'd be scratching through the dark and clawing through the dark trying to figure out this whole podcasting journey. So they have definitely made it easier for us. And we appreciate you guys coming out and checking us out here at Podcast University. We encourage you to look for the next event that's coming up soon, and definitely mark your calendars for that. And we look forward to seeing you. If anything else, you can always watch the replay on demand at university.podcastmovement.com. I'm Randy Wilburn from Encourage, Build, Grow, and we will see you soon. Peace.